All right, you made it. Welcome to your last video lecture. We're going to talk about psychosocial development across adulthood. Remember, we're covering early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood all at once this week. So let's dive in. Psychosocial development in adulthood. First thing I want you to know is personality is generally stable throughout adulthood. What does that mean? It means that a lot of times when we think of older adults, we have this very ageist idea that old people are grumpy. And that's just not the case. What you see is that if you meet an older person who is grumpy, they were grumpy as a young adult as well. So personality tends to remain stable throughout adulthood. Our temperamental traits, our temperament remains relatively stable as well. As we get older, men tend to show some decline in power and aggression and their need for achievement. Maybe we might say we tend to mellow out a little bit as we get older. Women, on the flip side, may actually increase in need for achievement and power and assertiveness. And we see this happens especially after children leave home. So maybe moms, especially moms who have kind of live their life with the traditional type of family norm where mom is staying home with kids and mom is emotionally and physically investing in the child care, that after the kids leave home, they are ready for something new, something else, some more power, some more achievement in their lives. So a little difference there between men and women. Now, let's talk briefly about Erikson. Erikson has 3 stages left, or 3 conflicts left, and they are intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and integrity versus despair. So let's break those down just for a couple minutes and talk about that. Intimacy isolation occurs in young adulthood. Again, that 18 or 25 to 40 year reign. This is where we begin to share ourselves more intimately with other people. During this time, we're going to explore relationships that are going to lead towards long-term commitments, potentially, with someone who is not our family member. So we're looking for intimate relationships, either with a significant other, a future spouse, or with friends, developing those lifelong friendships. Successful completion of this stage results in happy relationships, commitment, safety, attachment within another relationship beyond the attachment that we felt early on in childhood with our caregivers. And success in this stage leads to the virtue called love. Generativity versus stagnation is the middle adulthood stage for Erikson. This is from about age 40 to 65. This is the time when we establish ourselves in our careers, we settle down within relationships, we begin our families, develop a sense of just who we are in the big picture of the world. We spend a lot of time giving back to society, really through raising our children, being productive at work, being involved in community activities and organizations and serving and being a part that way. If we fail to achieve those objectives of generativity, then we become stagnant, we feel unproductive, but success in this stage leads us to the virtue of care. So the virtue of love in early adulthood, virtue of care in middle adulthood, which leads us to integrity versus despair, which is the stage that Erikson says marks late adulthood. As we grow older, getting over the age of 65, we become senior citizens, and we may tend to slow down some. Our productivity may slow down. We may start to explore life as a retired person and enjoy what that means. And it's during this time that we contemplate all of our accomplishments. We look back over our life, and we can, if we see ourselves as having led a successful life, we can develop some integrity there. Erikson said, though, if we see ourselves as being unproductive. We may feel guilt about our past. We may feel that we just didn't accomplish anything in our life or accomplish our life goals, and that can make us become dissatisfied with life and develop this idea of despair. And despair in late life can lead to depression and hopelessness, things that we don't want to think about. But on the other side of that, success in this stage leads to the virtue of wisdom. And wisdom enables a person to look back on their life with a sense of closure, a sense of completeness, and to really just to accept their death that is coming without fear. So that's Erickson's last three stages. Now, let's talk just for a minute about death. Chapter 17 deals with death, and in late life, we're going to be dealing not only with our own death, but possibly with the death of a spouse and death of friends, death of siblings, those types of things. And so death is something that happens. Death is not restricted just to late life. We know that death occurs across the lifespan at every stage. And so death is never something that is easy to deal with. It's something that must be dealt with, though. Kubler-Ross came up with the 5 stages of grief, and I want to make sure that you know what those are as we kind of think about our own death and what is impending there. We potentially will go through these stages. We may not go through all of them. We may go through them in different times and speeds, but these are the 5 stages. Denial, denying that this is going to happen. Anger, anger that it's happening. Being upset that it's happening. Bargaining, typically with a higher power. Let me live and I will do this. Depression, just this sorrow, this weight of this death is impending. And then finally acceptance, that I know that this is happening and I'm okay with it and can move on. And typically people are going to get to acceptance quicker if we go back to and think about how Erickson thought about it, if they can look back on their lives and have a life of integrity rather than a life of despair. Okay, well, you made it. This is the end of our course. Tomorrow will be the final exam. It has been a pleasure teaching you this winter break. I hope you've enjoyed the things that we have talked about, and I hope that if you are on campus in the spring that you will come by my office, DAH 208, and introduce yourself formally to me. It has been a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.